Will we make a start?
Yes, please.
Okay. From 23, text 23.
Yes, 23 to 43. Yeah, thank you.
Hare Krishna. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Yadi yam na kvateyam jatu karmanya tandritaha mama vatmanu vartante manushya patra sarvashaha.
Translation. For if I ever failed to engage in carefully performing prescribed duties, O Partha, certainly all men will follow my path.
Text 24. Utsideyu rime loka nakuryam karma chedaham sankarasya chakartasyam upahanyam ima prajaha.
Translation. If I did not perform prescribed duties, all these worlds would be put to ruination. I would be the cause of creating unwanted population, and I would thereby destroy the peace of all living beings.
Text 25. Sakta karmanya vidvamso yatha kurvanti bharata kuryad vidvams tatha saktash chikeshu loka sangraham.
Translation. As the ignorant perform their duties with attachment to results, the learned may similarly act, but without attachment, for the sake of leading people on the right path.
Text 26. Na buddhi bedam janayed agnanam karma sanginam joshaya sarva karmani vidvan yukta samacharan.
Translation. So as not to disrupt the minds of ignorant men attached to the fruitive results of prescribed duties, a learned person should not induce them to stop work. Rather, by working in the spirit of devotion, he should engage them in all sorts of activities for the gradual development of Krishna consciousness.
Text 27. Prakrute kriyamanani gune karmani sarvashah ahankara vimudatma kartaham iti manyate.
The spirit soul, bewildered by the influence of false ego, thinks himself the doer of activities that are in actuality carried out by the three modes of material nature.
Text 28. Tattva vitu mahabaho guna karma vibhagayoha guna karma guna guneshu vartanta iti matva na sajjate.
One who is in knowledge of the absolute truth, almighty armed, does not engage himself in the senses and sense gratification, knowing well the differences between work in devotion and work for fruitive results.
Text 29. Prakrute guna samuddaha sajjante guna karmasu ana krishna vido mandan krishna vina vichalayet.
Bewildered by the modes of material nature, the ignorant fully engage themselves in material activities and become attached. But the wise should not unsettle them, although these duties are inferior due to the performer's lack of knowledge.
Text 30. Mai sarvani karmani sanyasya dhyatma chetasa nirashir nirmamo bhutva yudhyasva vigata jvaraha.
Therefore, O Arjuna, surrendering all your works unto me with full knowledge of me, without desires for profit, with no claims to proprietorship, and free from lethargy, fight.
Text 31. Ye me matam idam nityam anutishtanti manavaha shraddhavanto nasuyanto muchyante karma viha.
Those persons who execute their duties according to my injunctions and who follow this teaching faithfully without envy become free from the bondage of fruitive actions.
Text 32. Ye tvetadapyasuyanto nanutishtanti me matam sarvagnana vimudam stan vidinashtam achetasaha.
But those who out of envy disregard these teachings and do not follow them regularly are to be considered bereft of all knowledge, befooled, and but those who out of envy disregard these teachings and do not follow them regularly are to be considered bereft, befooled, and ruined in their endeavors for perfection.
633. Satrisham swaha prakrute gnanavati prakriti nyanti bhutani nigrakim karishyati.
Everyone should mute it.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji, can you mute the background noise, please? Thank you. Translation: even a man of knowledge acts according to his own nature, for everyone follows the nature he has acquired from the three modes. What can repression accomplish?
Text 34. Indriyasyendriyasyate ragadvesha vyavastito tayona vasham agachet tavyasya paripantino.
There are principles to regulate attachment and aversion pertaining to the senses and their objects. One should not come under the control of such attachment and aversion because they are stumbling blocks on the path of self-realization.
Text 35. Shreyan swadharmo vigunaha paradharma swanushthitat swadharme nidanam shreyaha paradharmo bhayavaha.
It is far better to discharge one's prescribed duties, even though faultily, than another's duties perfectly. Destruction in the cause of performing one's own duty is better than engaging in another's duties, for to follow another's path is dangerous.
Text 36. Arjun uvacha atakena prayukto yam papam charati purushaha anicanapi vashreya baladiva niyojitaha.
Arjuna said, O descendant of Vrishni, by what is impelled to sinful acts, even unwillingly, as if engaged by force?
637. Shri Bhagwan uvacha kamesha krodesha rajoguna samudbhavaha mahashano mahapapma vidyameniva vairinam.
The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, it is lust only, Arjuna, which is born of contact with the material mode of passion and later transformed into wrath, and which is the all-devouring sinful enemy of this world.
Text 38. Tume navriyate vanir yathadarsho malena cha yatho benavrito garbhas tathatene tathatene damavritam.
As fire is covered by smoke, as a mirror is covered by dust, or as the embryo is covered by the womb, the living entity is similarly covered by different degrees of this lust.
Text 39. Avritam gnanam etena gnanino nitya vairina kama rupena kaunteya tushpurena nalena cha.
Thus, the wise living entity's pure consciousness becomes covered by his eternal enemy in the form of lust, which is never satisfied and which burns like fire.
Text 40. Indriyani manobuddhi asyadhishthanam uchyate ete vimohaya yatyesha nanamavritya dehinam.
The senses, the mind, and the intelligence are the sitting places of this lust. Through them, lust covers the real knowledge of the living entity and bewilders him.
Text 41. Tasmat tvam indriyani yadau niyamya bharatarshava apmanam prajaheyenam gnana vignana nashanam.
Therefore, O Arjuna, best of the Bharatas, in the very beginning, curb this great symbol of sin, lust, by regulating the senses and slay this destroyer of knowledge and self realization.
Text 42. Indriyani pararyahur indriyebhya param manaha manasastu para buddhir yo buddhe paratastu saha.
The working senses are superior to dull matter. Matter is higher than the senses. Intelligence is still higher than the mind. And he, the soul, is even higher than the intelligence.
Text 43. Evam buddhe param buddhva samsabhyatmanam atmana jahi shatrum mahabaho kamarupam durasadam.
Thus, knowing oneself to be transcendental to the material senses, mind, and intelligence, O mighty armed Arjuna, one should steady the mind by deliberate spiritual intelligence, Krishna consciousness, and thus, by spiritual strength, conquer this insatiable enemy known as lust. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to recite. Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much for such nicely reciting the word. And thank you, Santosh Maharaj, for such nicely reading the translations. Very nice.
Prabhuji, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. So nice so inspiring to see so many of you online on this festival day. The Shera. I think it was yesterday before. I think it was on Friday, isn't it? And today we celebrated in the temple. I don't know how many of you could get a chance to go to the temple to Bhaktivedanta Manor, where we were burning a lion at a lion, Ravan. Didn't even get a chance to go there. Okay, we did burn around there. Very, very relevant to what's going on. Okay, so we'll read the verse and the translation now. The verse for today is 42, chapter 3, Bhagavad Gita, verse number 42. I will recite the verse once again. I read the translation for good. Verse. Indriyani paranahu indrebhya param manaha manasastu para buddhir yo buddhe paratastu saha. Translation and purport by Srila Prabhupada. The working senses are superior to dull matter. Mind is higher than the senses. Intelligence still higher than the mind. And he, the soul, is even higher than the intelligence. Purport. The senses are different outlets for the activities of lust. Lust is reserved within the body, but it is given vent through the senses. Therefore, the senses are superior to the whole body as a whole. These outlets are not in use when there is superior consciousness or Krishna consciousness. In Krishna consciousness, the soul makes direct connection with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Therefore, the hierarchy of bodily functions, as described here, ultimately ends in the Supreme Soul. Bodily action means the functions of the senses, and stopping the senses means stopping all bodily actions. But since the mind is active, then even though the body may be silent and at rest, the mind will act as it does during dreaming. But above the mind is the determination of the intelligence, and above the intelligence is the soul proper. If therefore the soul is directly engaged with the Supreme, naturally all other subordinates, namely the intelligence, mind, and the senses, will be automatically engaged. In the Katha Upanishad, there is a similar passage in which it is said that the objects of sense gratifications are superior to the senses, and the mind is superior to the sense objects. If therefore the mind is directly engaged in the service of the Lord constantly, there is no chance that the sense will become engaged in other ways. The mental attitude has already been explained, param drishtvā nivartate. If the mind is engaged in the transcendental service of the Lord, there is no chance of its being engaged in the lower propensities. In the Katha Upanishad, the soul has been described as Mahan, the great. Therefore, the soul is above all, namely the sense objects, the senses, the mind, and the intelligence. Therefore, directly understanding the constitutional position of the soul is the solution of the whole problem. With intelligence, one has to seek out the constitutional position of the soul and then engage the mind always in Krishna consciousness. That solves the whole problem. A neophyte spiritualist is generally advised to keep aloof from the objects of the senses. But aside from that, one has to strengthen the mind by use of intelligence. If by intelligence one engages one's mind in Krishna consciousness, by complete surrender unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead, then automatically the mind becomes stronger. And even though the senses are very strong, like serpents, they will be no more effective than serpents with broken fangs. But even though the soul is the master of intelligence and mind, and the senses also, still, unless it is strengthened by the association with Krishna and Krishna consciousness, there is every chance of falling down due to the agitated mind. Jai Srila Prabhupada. What a beautiful God. So we'll chant our prayers. Om Ajnana Timiram
I am good. How are you?
Chakshurunmilitam yena tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Sri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Brahmarupa Pradhanayam Tadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Guru Vaishnavamsa Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanukam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Saharana Lalita Shri Vishakamatam Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Presthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Prachadine Nirvishesha Sunyavadi Paschata Deshakarane He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Deenabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Shri Radha Kanta Namastute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी यशोदाम सुते देवी नमामि हरि वंशकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। श्रीकृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद। हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे, हरे कृष्ण। Thank you all once again for being here on a Sunday evening at this time. This is so amazing. All of you enthusiasm, all of your enthusiasm for Srimad Bhagavad Gita is so inspiring and so wonderful. So Krishna's, everything about Krishna is so sweet. His words are so sweet, and there's a whole song about Madhuram. I don't know, some of you may already know the song, maybe singing as well. So obviously, this is the higher taste that Prabhupada is talking about in the purport. When we are always looking forward to get together in the evening and discuss the words of Sri Krishna. It is so purifying for the heart and for the senses. Just the repeating of these verses and the beautiful translation of Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada itself is so purifying. This is the higher taste that the senses need, and we're already following the solution. So today was I was saying before the burning of the Ravan, the face, the Sarah. Would anyone like to speak a little bit about the Sarah? What is this festival about, and what are we celebrating today? Any quick 1 minute, 2 minute summarization of the festival? No? Okay.
The Navaratri festival.
Sorry, say again.
I think somebody else is also speaking, Prabhu. I will let them proceed.
Okay. Please speak.
Yeah, sorry, Prabhuji. Mataji, can go on, Sailaja Mataji. No, I think, Prabhuji, we're talking about Dasara, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So I think this festival we celebrate because Lord Rama killed Ravana and gave the protection and all the happiness to the entire universe. So that's the reason we celebrate this festival.
Thank you so much. So nice. The Sarah, 10-headed Ravan. And you know what does Ravan personify? What was the problem with Ravan? He was a very learned person, wasn't he? He was, well versed in all the scriptures, and he knew very well how to worship the demigods, and very, very learned. But what was his big problem?
Enviousness on the Krishna. He doesn't like Supreme Lord.
Yeah, he did not like the demigod. And he personifies the exact discussion that Krishna is talking about here, lust. For him, it was impossible. He had, I don't know how many queens. He had a palace made of gold, a chariot of gold that he stole from his cousin, Kubera. But his lust could never be satiated. As Krishna was saying before, this lust is the biggest enemy. And it goes and sits in all the places. It goes in the senses, goes in the mind and intelligence, and covers the real intelligence of the soul. And that was Ravan. He just lost his senses completely. He was advised by his wise brother Vibhishan to return Mother Sita to Lord Ram. He said, "Now you don't know what you're playing with. You're playing with fire this time. You will destroy yourself. You will destroy the whole of our a dynasty, all your, all the, everyone in the whole of kingdom will be destroyed. You please don't do this. But he could not accept that good advice, because his mind, his intelligence, his everything was taken over by the lust. It's just impossible for him to think otherwise. And because, as you said, he was envious, so much proud of what he had achieved through his tapasya. This is another way, in the old days there will be tapasya is like austerities performed by the sages, and they perform tapasya or the austerities for the well-being of everyone. As demons were not aligned with the thinking of the Lord, they perform austerities to gain some boons from the demigods, and so that they can enjoy the senses more and more. This is extreme body control, and this is even though Ravan was aware, he sees all the things. He was envious of God, mind what about so, that's okay. Sorry about that. Yeah, so this is so much relevant. So we burn the Ravan today, and we also pray to Lord Ram that he does the same. He helps us overcome the lust that's sitting within our heart and our mind and intelligence. So that's the meditation. Now the purport is, this is quite a bit a technical verse in the sense of how Krishna is. So we discussed in the previous verse what is going on at the moment is that Krishna has explained that Arjun's question was, what is the what is the reason people enter into this or get into the sinful activities? And Krishna explained that lust is the all-devouring enemy of the soul. And then Krishna explained that lust is into the mind and the body and the intelligence. The senses, the mind and intelligence are the sitting place of this lust. They're sitting everywhere. It's the senses, the mind, and the intelligence. And this covers the real knowledge of the living entity and bewilders him. Eta vimohate esa jnanam avritta dehina. Avritta is covering completely. So then that is a bit of a scary sentence. So you can imagine what Arjun must be thinking at that stage. Okay, and Arjun obviously is playing a part of a lost soul, a jiva, who is bewildered. And at that stage, when you say everything is covered, Krishna says the mind, the senses, the intelligence are the sitting base of this lust, and it's covering the real knowledge. Now, what is the way out? Yeah, and then again, Krishna is saying this. Just if you say follow the conversation, how it is happening, every question that Arjun asks, then Krishna responds with the answer. Then there is Krishna is also, and this is the other side of it. We also remember as devotees, there is Lord as a person, Arjun as a devotee is a person, and this is a personal conversation going on between the Lord and his devotee. And when someone, let's say we are in conversation, I say something, or someone makes a statement which is quite strong and heavy, you can imagine how the listener is reacting to that. The mind is getting control. This is the situation, like everything is covered. What is the way out? Now the Lord is now pacifying a little bit, saying what needs to be done, because this is covering the senses, the mind, and the intelligence. You bring it in control right from the beginning. Yeah, it says in the very beginning, curb this great symbol of sin, lust, by regulating the senses, and slay the destroyer of knowledge and realization. But this is very important. So right at the what do they call it? Nip in the bud. Nip in the bud means when the problems start, before the problems start, we have to just sort it then and there. So I do volunteer in the farm we have a farm in the Bhaktivedanta Manor, and we also have Goshala where we have cows and oxen and bulls, and we do some farming with the oxen. And I'll give you an example of both. So oxen, they're very, very strong. You know, I don't know if you've seen them, like each of them probably weigh about 2 tons or something. Massive. And just imagine if they are not properly trained or not controlled right from the beginning. When they start to grow, we train them. If they're not trained, that animal can cause havoc. I mean, with all respect, I know we call animals obviously worshipable for us, but you know, it has to be trained. When we train the oxen, they do all the farming for us. You know, we do the whole of the farm area, the laying, we cut the soil, and we have all the traditional style we do. Sometimes, you know, you're all welcome to come in and observe that, how that is all being done. But that is purely by training. When they are, you know, just about a year old, when they come in the stage where the bodies become strong enough, we start to, you know, tame them a little bit, or train them, and then kind of use whatever is needed so that they understand what is the right thing to do. Discipline. A student goes to the school, and the children, they have, in a way, nicely, with love. You know, with love is the overarching principle for whatever we do, whether that is training the options or training. Even for children, we have so much love, but we have to also train them. And discipline in the school is required right in the young age. You know, you follow that, and then it brings good result. It is for a good purpose. The same way Krishna is saying, if we, you know, try to control the lust right from the beginning, it is much easier. The fire, for example, a little flame is okay, you can control it. But if the fire goes wild, you know, like the forest fires, how do you control that? Only Krishna's cloud and the natural rain can only, you know, extinguish that kind of fire. The same thing happens when the senses are not in control. They can cause havoc. And same thing happened, you know, in Ravan's case as well. He created havoc and caused so much trouble for everyone. And that's Lord's Leela. That's okay. So now we can bring it in control. Krishna is saying that. Then Krishna has to further qualify that. Okay, how do you do that? If everything is covered by the lust, then there has to be some way. Then Krishna explains, what is the hierarchy? So the hierarchy is the working senses are superior to the dull matter. So we know, experience that. You know, for example, is gulab jamun is my favorite. It's, you know, it's dull. It's very attractive to the senses, to the eyes. It's a dull matter. So the senses are, when the senses by itself, for example, you know, even this this mic that I'm using, or this laptop, or whatever instruments, in a way it's a dull matter. It's controlled by us. So by themselves, they don't, you know, by or itself, we can't do much. So the dull matter is kind of the lowest in the chain. And the working senses, through the working senses, you know, we can manipulate and we can use the dull matter for our purpose in you know, in both ways, in good or the bad way. And then Krishna says the mind is the higher than the senses, and we can understand that. The initial contact, so initially the mind is contemplating, or the senses, the eyes get into contact with gulab jamun. Oh wow, it looks very nice. I love gulab jamun. It's very nice. That's the first contact. The senses have engaged with the object, with the dull matter, and now the desire is building up. Now the mind immediately, it goes to the mind. There's a connection. I'm going to come to the slide in a minute. We'll just discuss the purport. It's so many beautiful points in there. But the process goes like that. The mind gets the signal, hey, there is something here to enjoy. And the intelligence comes, mind goes to the intelligence. Mind, the activity of mind is willing, thinking. So he's saying, but it does not make a decision by itself. So it goes to the intelligence. Intelligence is the discrimination between what needs to be done now. So Krishna, I think Prabhupada explains the intelligence. The real intelligence is the intelligence that can differentiate between matter and spirit. That is the real intelligence. So when we use our same intelligence to go to read the verses, chant these verses, read the translation, for discuss these, and then the intelligence is all the time discerning, discriminating, this is the right thing, wrong thing, and I'm trying to, that is more Krishna consciousness. But the same intelligence is used all through the day, with whatever thing we do, whatever action we perform. Intelligence is constantly being used. But then, because intelligence is that element which is guiding mind, intelligence becomes becomes higher, and then the soul is even higher than the intelligence. So ultimately, it's the soul which is enjoying the fruits of all actions. Experience is only coming to the soul. It's not coming to the any of those other senses. The mind is also another type of senses, but the whole of these activities of the game is about the soul trying to experience something, some pleasure. So the soul is in control. So Krishna is giving us this confidence to us. Finally, we have established that we are the soul. In the second chapter, we had so many verses, and now we are also establishing, or Krishna is establishing that even though the senses, mind, intelligence can be covered by the lust, but soul is the master. The soul can control. So that means now there is some bit of hope developing that yes, I am a soul, and I have the intelligence, and I have the mind. I have a body. It's my body. It's not me as a soul. It's not me body or I body like that. So that's also we discussed. I'm sure we would have discussed many times how the general, even the terminology is like that. It's my hands, my mind, my glasses, everything. So the soul is the boss at this stage. Ultimate boss is Krishna. We'll come to that point. So Prabhupada also explains this. What is the vent? Vent for this lust is when it's reserved in the body. These outlets. These outlets, the 9 gates. The Bhagavad Gita we will also read in the future chapters. Krishna explains about the 9 gates. So the 2 nostrils, the eyes, the mouth, the ears, and the anus and gentle. So these are the different 9 holes through which soul is trying to using the body as the 9 holes is trying to experience that enjoyment or pleasure, which is temporary, obviously, and which is causing the trouble for us. And so that's one thing. Then Prabhupada says further down about this very beautiful point. So how do we try to understand this a little bit? How is the mind higher than the senses? Now Prabhupada is touching upon this concept of 3 levels of consciousness. So 3 levels of consciousness is when we are in the awake state, and when we are in the dreaming state, and when we are in the deep sleep. So Prabhupada is touching upon the situation where, so when we are in the awake state, we are constantly moving around, our hands and eyes and everything is active. But when we are in the dream state, we're sleeping and we're dreaming, the rest of the hands and limbs and none of those action senses are moving around. But what's still active is the mind. So mind actually never stops. It just is constantly thinking. So when we're dreaming, in our dream, we can do so many things, and we can even get into trouble. Sometimes we're chased by the lions. Sometimes we, jump off a cliff. I mean, that's scary things. Or sometimes the devotees, that's a very nice thing to have. But the mind does not take rest. Mind is constantly active. But when the living entity, when we come to the awake state, between the time we actually start to function, get up in the morning, for example, and start our activities. The first thing that happens is when we open our eyes, the mind activates the body, the senses. The mind then drives, okay, now you can get up and we go around, get from the bed, and we do whatever needs to be done. So that kind of explains very beautifully as to how the mind actually is the first place where our mind is higher than the senses, and how mind does take the body, moves the body around this and so that way. Then there is Katha Upanishad, and there is also this concept of a neophyte spiritualist generally advised to keep aloof from the objects of senses. So that is the best way to do it. Prabhupada explains very nicely. For us, we try to keep away those, these objects of the senses, in the sense the senses are utilized, but only utilized in the service of Krishna. So right from the beginning, and when we are practicing, so we are all sadhakas, we're being trained. So same way as we discussed before, the options are being trained. We also need to be disciplined. So a good disciple, we're trying to be disciples, good disciples. Disciple means discipline. Disciplines means we followed the regulations, the different do's and don'ts of the spiritual life. So I will now try to explain a little bit more. I'll share another screen now. I don't know how to share the whole laptop. I'll share this. Questions. Okay, so yes. Can you see my screen now? PowerPoint?
Yes, Prabhuji.
Prabhupada in the purport, right at the beginning, says very beautiful point. The soul has a direct connection with Sri Krishna. Krishna is the Rishikesh. Okay. He's the master or the owner of all the senses. The soul has direct connection with Krishna. The soul is pure spirit, and soul is Sat Chit Ananda. The Sat Chit Ananda, anyone would like to explain what these three things mean? So these are the properties of soul.
Eternal, knowledgeable, and blissful. Action.
Sat is eternal. So it's spirit means it never destroys. The matter gets destroyed. Matter is temporary. Soul is eternal. And Chit is conscious, is knowledgeable. And Ananda is always blissful. We don't experience that bliss all the time, do we? It's quite different when we are in the material world. Although we're chasing that same bliss, but probably in the wrong direction sometimes. So what happens then is the soul gets covered by the false ego. So what is the false ego? What is the false ego? False ego means identification with the body. So when I forget, which constantly happens, that I am a soul, and then I try to identify myself with the body. Means everything that I want to do or I end up doing is only in relation to the body, to satisfy the demands of the body in the senses. And when the false ego happens, I forget my relationship with Krishna. My true nature gets forgotten. I mean, a true nature of soul is bhakti. So it's also explained very beautifully in the Bhagavatam also later. Then there are only, in the spiritual world, there's only three things that exist, if I can call things, sorry. So there is Bhagavan, there is Bhakta, and there is Bhakti. So Bhagavan, Bhakta, and Bhakti, the devotee, the Lord Krishna, and the devotional services. That's all that's happening in the spiritual world. And the perverted reflection in the material world is slightly different to that. It's because in the material world, we forget that, who are we? And that is the whole process that, this beautiful process of Krishna consciousness, the consciousness of our own identification as the lover of Krishna, and Krishna is our, and Krishna loves us, and we love Krishna. That is lost. So how does that happen? So the false ego starts when that covers the real identification for a soul. We have these 5 gross elements. So 5 gross elements, anyone knows? What are the 5 gross elements?
Fire, earth,
Yes.
sky,
Bhumirapo.
water,
Yeah. So the 5, sorry, say,
air.
yeah. Can you say again? Sorry, I cannot hear that.
Fire, air, earth, water,
Yes.
and it.
Ether. Yes, wonderful. These are the 5 gross elements, Panchamahabhut. So these gross elements, these start to, this is the interaction that will kick off. So first there are 5 gross elements. Then there is unmanifested nature. There are 3 modes of material nature, which is sattva, rajas, and tamas. Mode of goodness, mode of action, and mode of ignorance. And then there is intelligence, as we discussed before. And the intelligence is driven by the modes. So why do people do different types of things? We discussed before. I think that depending on the individual particular mode that he is functioning in, or during the day or night, we are always changing our modes. In the morning, now we are in the mode of good discussing Bhagavad Gita, and in the morning we are chanting as goodness, and actually if we perform our chanting very nicely, that's beyond goodness, pure goodness. And then during the day, as we go on, we start to do our work, and the work is more of passion. And in the evening, we start, to kind of wind down, and it takes rest, and sleeping is more of So all our activities are driven by the moods, and intelligence is mostly covered by the modes. Intelligence is controlling the mind, as we discussed before. And then there are these sense objects, the 5 sense objects as well. So hearing, smell, taste, and what else? Smell and touch. Yeah. And there are 5 knowledge acquiring senses. Gyanendriyas, can anyone say what are the 5 knowledge acquiring senses? I got some hint here on the diagram.
Eyes, ears,
Yes.
nose, and mouth,
Yes. And
and
hand.
hand.
Yeah. So this is what's happening between. So we have eyes to see something nice, and we have ears to hear something, and we have the nose to smell something, mouth to taste something, and to touch something. So this is the interaction that's going on between the sense objects and the knowledge acquiring. And there are working senses as well, karmendriyas. Anyone knows what the 5 karmendriyas? So how are we, so there is the knowledge acquiring through which we are acquiring the knowledge, we're seeing something or we're trying to smell something, but there are these working senses as well. So we got the limbs as well, we got hands, we got legs,
Hands,
we're around.
legs,
Yeah. Go on, sorry.
arms,
Yes.
hands, um,
Yeah, so there is hands and legs, there is tongue, which is speaking,
tongue.
and then we got the anus and the genital. So these are the five. So these are the the 24 elements in the material world. This, if you say, there are various ideas and philosophies around that. And most famous is the 24 elements. So we got five of the knowledge acquiring senses, five of the working senses. Then we have the five gross elements, that makes 20. And we got the mind, intelligence, unmanifested nature, sometimes called forces as well. So 24 elements. So, and soul is, if you see here in the diagram, it has nothing to do with all this. It's just completely aloof. It's just in its purest form, it's just connected to God and just eternally in that bliss. But the desire of a soul to enjoy separate from Krishna, then we have to go through all these different coverings that we develop. Just imagine how many things Krishna has to do for us to, so that we can enjoy separate from Krishna. It's a lot of activities. Like Lord Brahma, he is every day creating. So it's a one day of Brahma, and there is the whole thing. One day of Brahma, 14 manus, and how many billions of years, and how many times there will be 72 creations and destructions and cycles taking place. So this is how much Krishna has to do for us, and this is all out of love, because we desire to enjoy separate from Krishna. The Krishna has to create for us to enjoy separately from him, and to be able to enjoy separately. And says, as a pure soul, the soul's true nature, constitutional nature is Jivana Swarupa Krishna Raniteras. As a soul, we are just constantly in service to Sri Krishna. As I said before, there is Bhagavan, there is Bhakti, and there is Bhakta. That's all going on. But away from there, then we enter into, when we want to be our own little enjoyers, or sometimes also call it Brahmas. We as we grow, we also create something, whatever by our work or family, we create, and then we maintain them. So if you do that, we become little gods in our own sense. So we do all that creation, maintenance, and destruction as well. All those three things happening at the same time. But that does not really give us that pleasure that we ultimately are looking for. But it is very useful, scripture says it is very important to understand the science of this 24 elements. Where we don't understand them clearly, then we can get confused as to who we really are. Yeah, so when this is like, we do chemistry. I'm not a science, I'm an accountant, but I'm sure there are quite a few of you scientists or science students here. So if you understand the different metals, then it helps us. Like, this is water, this is H2O, that's all I know. There's two hydrogen and oxygen. The kind of differentiates. And then when we understand this, the nature of this material, how is it created? What does it include? What is the constitution of this nature? So when we separate out all these things and we understand the interaction of all these things, that makes us aware of what's really happening with us. So when there's a soul, we get this knowledge from Sri Krishna and the sages, like Srila Prabhupada explaining it so nicely. Just imagine, when I read this, I said, wow, this is interesting. So what's happening every day when we try to use this intelligence or use this knowledge in our day-to-day interaction? we can actually experience that. How these interactions of these knowledge acquiring senses, the Gyanendriya, the Khamendriya, and all the senses, how these things are interacting. Anything in this world is made of 5 gross elements. The body is made of 5 gross elements. We have water, we have fire in the stomach. Krishna says, I am the stomach and I'm the fire in the stomach. Aham Vaishwa Narod Bhutva. So he's the, and then also, as I said, Krishna is so nice, so kind to us. Even after us trying to enjoy away from him, he gives us everything that we need. He says, I am the fire in the stomach, who helps digest. And he says, so hum up sukanteya. When we go on in 7th chapter, he will say, well, I am the taste of the water. He's the taste of the water, he's taken the fire, and he manifests in all these elements, and just for us, and for us to be able to enjoy the way we want to enjoy. So he kind of facilitates our own desires. So a lot of time we discuss these points as to why, if the material world is so horrible, why is it here? Why is this created? So, but then when we understand how Krishna is actually manifesting everything and how he's facilitating everything for us only to enjoy, but at the same time learn the lesson. Once he gives us everything that we need. So someone in the mode of goodness, is getting knowledge and is in a good state to go to the next stage. But the passion is, is full of desires and lust. So for those people who are in full mode of passion, how will they enjoy? So everything is facilitated, the body is created, the food is created, the air, the water, everything, fire, and there's cows to give us milk, there is produced in the village, in the farm, so we get the nice vegetables and fruits and everything. Everything that is needed is being provided by Krishna. Om Purnamada, 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 Purnamada. Everything is a complete whole, is perfect. But this is all for us to enjoy. But this temporary enjoyment is not, that is the ultimate, ultimate, how do you say, bliss for the soul. The bliss is here. So, but through this understanding, is it helping? Am I making sense? When we differentiate, it's very interesting when we actually start to do this in our day-to-day observations. When I didn't know these things, it was very different. And actually, this science is not known in even not taught anywhere in the schools or anywhere in the universities. This is the knowledge that Prabhupada wanted us to learn, and this is what the Vedic scriptures, once it's all explained, then it makes so much sense. And Prabhupada says repeatedly, like Krishna is looking after the birds and animals and every insect. Everyone is getting food. Everyone's getting whatever they need to the place of sleep. Like I really wonder a lot of time the birds. I've never seen the birds just falling down on the earth without any food, like dying of hunger, or they don't have any of those problems. They just go around, the pigeons go around, they get food here, there, and they survive. So Krishna is providing for everyone. The same way Krishna will provide for us as well. So that's the understanding of 24 elements. I'm hoping that was useful. This is the next, that is very relevant to the verses. It's very popular, very famous from Katha Upanishad. The example of chariot is given. The chariot of the body. The body is the sharira. And what's happening is the 5 senses, like 5 horses. And there is mind, which is the rein. You can see that rein, which is controlling it. The intelligence is controlling the mind, which is the rein, and my mind is controlling the horses, which are the senses. And this soul here is the passenger. Yeah. And just imagine if it was the other way around. If these horses went wild, what is the future of this person here? If there was no control, and is that rather than fulfilling the wish of where the passenger wants to go or the warrior wants to go to fight this enemy called lust, if this person is not in charge or this person is not acting to the order of this person, what's happening? The mind is, in the senses, going wild, and this is what's happening, at the moment in the world outside. People, who are not in the knowledge, unfortunately, and this is our duty to. That's why share this beautiful knowledge. That this is the other way around. This is the senses are driving everything and going havoc. Rather than that, it should be all controlled. The mind has to be driven by the intelligence, the spiritual intelligence, so that the spirit soul goes to its target, or it goes to its purpose of human life to achieve the Krishna prema. And this is a very famous example. I thought most of you may already know this. Then how this is a verse that we discussed before, I'm sure, 259. Very, very nice. Prabhupada says this in the purport as well. Vishaya vinivartante nirahara sudevine rasavarjam rasopasya param drishtva nivartate. So how do we, so there's also this situation of the mind which is constantly, in the game of desire, karma. I don't know how much time we have. It's 10 to, okay. So it's impossible. As we discussed before, even in the sleep state, the mind is active. The mind is covered by the lust. Even in the sleep state, this mind is constantly just trying to find that object of sense gratification. So if that is to be controlled, how can it be controlled? I mean, yogis, some people try to do that, the control their, eating, and how long can you possibly do that? I mean, we can't. It becomes impossible. Maybe for a short-term duration, some people are able to do, but in the longer term, it gets impossible. And when it breaks, then they go crazy. They eat anything and everything. So, for example, if I try to control my hunger, how long can I do that? I have to eat finally. I have to sleep. Those things I cannot control. So how do we do better? By engaging senses. The senses will always need to be engaged somewhere, but we engage those senses in the service of Krishna. Then you get the higher taste. Like prasadam was, as I was saying before, when I first time had the prasadam at the temple, and we all have the same experience. That where is this taste coming from? I've never tasted anything like this. We go to restaurants. I don't know. Some people go 10 miles, 20 miles to eat in London. They travel so much distance to look for that taste. Or the taste that we get at prasadam is impossible to get. So because the master of the senses is Sri Krishna, and that's where the real enjoyment, a soul that is trying to experience gets. So when we get into this Krishna consciousness, and we engage our senses in the Krishna service, that bliss, that enjoyment is what we are looking for, and that can only, Prabhupada explained very nicely, can actually, subdue this enemy lust. Otherwise, if we read the last couple of lines in the purport, Prabhupada explains it's not possible. Even the most advanced spiritualists also, you've seen many examples. They fall in the end. But the devotees, Haridas Thakur, we have discussed this many times, and it's so glorious that he could not be moved. He has to. I have to chant 192 rounds, and there is no way the senses get any other engagement and any other attraction. And it is all, and again, this is Krishna is Rasaraj. He's giving us all the happiness and bliss. So when we engage in Krishna service, our happiness, our bliss only multiplies many times. So this is another Sarvopadi Nirmuktam Tat Paratvena Nirmalam Rishikena Rishikesha Sevanam Puruchate. I'm sorry, I think I cut this a little bit. So when the spirit soul renders service unto Supreme Lord, there are two side effects. One is freed from the material designation, our senses are purified. So this designation, sarvopadi, vinirmuktam, this upadi that we have, the who am I? Am I this person who is working in an IT company? Or am I a father? Or am I this? Am I that? If I give up all those upadhis, the coverings, and realize, who's the real enjoyer, then my enjoyment has no bounds. So that's all. I think it's time. Only 8 minutes left. Sorry, probably I spoke a lot. Any questions? Should we discuss anything? Any comments? Any corrections, please? Hare Krishna, Krishnangi Mataji. Are you there?
Yes, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you so much for being here. I didn't say that before. Thank you so much for being present here. And that's
Thank
blessing.
you for a nice class, Prabhuji.
Thank you.
Very informative.
Thank you. Please tell me if any corrections or anything you would like to.
No, it was a very good class. Yeah, I picked up a lot from it.
We spoke a lot. I should have some more time for any more questions, anyone, or we can just wind up. Sorry, I think maybe shall we end now?
Hare Krishna Prabhu, there's I think there's a question on
Oh,
that.
yeah. Question on the sorry. Is it the soul or the intelligence that is the ultimate decision maker? Yes. Yeah. So so the decision maker is always the soul, and because of the misidentification with the body, so the forgetfulness that who am I really? Am I the spirit, or am I matter? Depending on that, the soul makes a decision. And intelligence is the facilitator, obviously. Sometimes, so the intelligence is that same intelligence can be either used in the service of Krishna or in the service of the senses. It is ultimately the soul is desiring. So desires is what is being fulfilled all the time. The soul is constantly desiring for one or the other. The mind is full of desires. Sometimes it is said that, like an ocean has unlimited waves, it never stops. Waves are always constantly coming. I've even seen no waves in the ocean. Same way the situation is with the mind. Mind, not because of the covering of the, and the senses and the enjoyment and the desire. It's always full of desires, always. And so where are the desires coming from? The soul has a desire to be with Krishna, to enjoy. I mean, the enjoyment is nothing wrong with that, but it's just that we got enjoyment in the wrong place that we're trying to seek. The soul is the ultimate decision maker, yes. And because everything is being facilitated for the soul. If the soul desires to be away from Krishna, soul comes away from Krishna. Soul desires to be back to Godhead, to be with Krishna again. Then the intelligence is used in the way which is more conducive to the Krishna consciousness, and we engage the intelligence. Then the intelligence, gives the right decision to the mind. So what should I do today? Should I go to a pub or should I go to the temple? And intelligence is, because if it is connected to Sri Krishna, so intelligence of the soul, then it is helping the soul going back to Krishna. The intelligence, buddhi, mana, these are all in a way the subtle bodies which are mostly required when we are connected with the matter. Soul as such is naturally is the three attributes that we discussed. Soul is Sat, Chit, Anand. Soul is by itself all knowledgeable. It has the bliss itself. So it is not dependent on the intelligence by itself, but to be able to function in the material context, the intelligence is being used. And also the same intelligence, as I said before, used in the service of Krishna, then helps the soul go back, connects back or goes back to its original constitutional position. Does that help? When I first heard this, devotees saying that the mind is full of desires, actually, when we contemplate more, and at some stage, I started journaling every day, which actually helped me a lot. We spend about 10 minutes in the night just to journal as to what I went through the day, what sort of desires and situations were coming up, the mind, the anger, and all envy, all sorts of things are happening. When I sit in the night for 10 minutes, I try to write down how did I spend my day, what was my interaction, what was my thought process, and then I try to reflect back, referring to the Guru, Sadhu, and Shastra. These are three helping guides for us. Then we say, okay, maybe I should have done this, maybe I should have done that, and maybe I can do this. So it just gradually, as we do more and more, it helps immensely. I mean, that's my personal experience to everyone. I beg upon everyone when I meet. I mean, if we really want to change in our life, and yes, association is very powerful, services are wonderful, all those things are beautiful. But the reflections that we need to do as individuals, that is the greatest help, because the mind, depending on the modes, we can get carried away. So this is my personal experience, and it really helps. I mean, there's a long way to go, but it is very helpful to journal. And we actually start to realize how the intelligence is different, the mind is different, the senses are different, how everything is created and constructed. Thank you, Prabhu. Thank you so much for your encouragement. A very nice question. I think thank you so much. Thank you, Mataji. Hare Krishna. Good night. Have a great Krishna Panchami.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Thank you, Prabhuji, for wonderful class. Thank you very much. Please come again.
Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Thank you,
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Lovely class. Thank you.
Thank you.